Welcome to the House of Overthinking, and to my very first video. I'll be talking tonight about Coraline, one of my favourite movies, and I hope that it's one of yours because Coraline truly is a work of art and a masterpiece. I've watched it so many times and listened to the soundtrack so many times, which is also in its own right an absolute work of art. And it really deserves to be given more credit as one of the best soundtracks that's ever been composed, I think. Coraline also has one of the best lines I've ever heard in a movie, which is, "Find our eyes, mistress, and then our souls will be freed." I mean, it's one of those children's movies that we haven't seen since The Never-Ending Story. One of the things that I really noticed watching it recently in 3D, which was a fantastic reminder of discovering it in 2009 in 3D, one of the things that really stood out to me was how horrible Coraline's mother is. She doesn't have a great many redeeming qualities. I mean, she tries, she really does. At times, I have to stipulate at times. And I see a lot of comments on YouTube saying, oh, they were busy, they were stressed, this was just a deadline crush period, they wouldn't normally treat Coraline this way. I'm not so sure about that. I think the father would normally give more attention to Coraline, but the mother, the way she related to her, it really seemed as though she didn't know how to connect with her daughter, and I don't think that was just a product of them being busy. I mean, look at how difficult it was for her to even let Coraline express herself with a pair of gloves that were the colour she wanted. And later on in the movie, when she finally lets her daughter choose the colour of her own gloves, I mean, no one's going to be nominating her for Mother of the Year on that basis. She speaks to her husband as though she has been belittling him and criticising him for many, many years. And he's just gotten used to it. He takes the criticism lying down. He calls her the boss. I think he's learned to cope by being really, really passive. And the mother has gotten into the habit of wielding quite a toxic level of power over her family. I mean, some of the things she says to her husband, what was it when they were handing in the writing project that they'd been doing? She says, oh, don't fret, Charlie, they'll love the catalogue, or at least they'll love my chapters. I mean, what a horrible thing to say to your husband. It's so undermining and so... I mean, can you imagine what that would feel like if your significant other was talking to you like that? And I couldn't quite work out. At one moment it seemed like she was editing his writing, but when she said that it sounded as though she had been doing writing. Either way, that's not the kind of mother who is in the habit of encouraging her family and lifting them up. I'm sad to say it. So Coraline is kind of surprisingly well-adjusted, all things considered. She's got this highly negative mother who, even the second to last thing the mother said was, I really hate dirt. I mean, it begs the question, why does she write about gardening if she hates dirt and doesn't enjoy the reality of it? I mean, does she love anything in her life, or is everything just a source of negativity to her? I have to say, Terry Hatcher did an amazing job of bringing both Mrs. Jones and the other mother to life. It was a really incredible... I think if the Academy Award for voice acting had been around back then... Is there an Academy Award for voice acting? I'm sure there is now. Anyway, wrong rabbit hole to go down. There's plenty more ahead. Even the fact that Coraline is an only child, they still can't spare her enough attention. I mean, usually only children get a bit pampered, they get a bit spoiled. She's not the middle child being overlooked. She doesn't have a sibling with special needs who's getting the lion's share of attention, whether they want to or not. There's not really any extenuating circumstances for her to be so completely overlooked and for her parents to be so uninvolved. But now that I'm done assassinating the character of Coraline's mother, do hold that thought, because I'll be looping back around to it when I discuss my ideas for a Coraline sequel. I have a theory that quite excites me about Coraline that I want to share with you, because I have not heard anyone else reach this conclusion. And one of the reasons why I think no one has reached this conclusion is because everyone's busy looking for clues to the identity of the other mother in the pages of Coraline, which is a completely reasonable expectation. However, it seems to have everyone barking up the tree of, she's a Beldam, what's a Beldam? And they're analysing what a Beldam means, which is, a horrible old woman, witchy type character. But the Beldam is not a pre-existing figure in mythology per se. She's not exactly a context for the other mother to fit into. It's just a name that Neil Gaiman picked up. So we're still left with the question, after all of that analysis of the word Beldam, what is the other mother? And I've worked it out. The clue is not in Coraline. It's in the pages of another one of Neil Gaiman's stories, Stardust. When I was leaving the theatre a couple of weeks ago, it occurred to me the similarities in the fundamental relationship between the other mother and Coraline and the Witch Queen and Yvain in Stardust. In both cases, you have this ancient supernatural female who is preying on a younger female in the hopes of stealing her youth and consuming her to prolong their twisted immortality. Very, very similar write-up for both of the villains. And it's not just that, it's even their tactics, it's the strategies that they use. How does the other mother catch Coraline? She appeals to her. She sets herself up as something that Coraline wants. She lures her. She sets a trap. She gets Coraline to lower her defenses of her own volition. She wants Coraline to choose it. It's a very important part of it. She wants Coraline to come to her willingly. And when Coraline has been lulled into a false sense of security and she lets down her defenses, that's when the other mother makes her move and makes her offer. In Stardust, what tactic does the Witch Queen use to try and catch Yvain? She doesn't hunt her down like a fox. She sets a trap. She uses her magic to make this hotel, which doesn't seem to tax her as much as it should have, but at any rate, she makes this magical hotel, pretends to be an innkeeper, and then she invites Yvain in, gives her a warm bath, offers her a massage, just to get her energy flowing. And then when Yvain's defenses are down and she's been lulled into a false sense of security, once again, she strikes. So they have a very similar modus operandi. And the fact that they both come from the mind of the same person tells us we can probably make some connections between these two characters. The book of Stardust refers to the three witches as the three Lilim. Now, the Lilim are the daughters of Lilith, who many of you will know from mythology. She was in apocryphal Judeo-Christian mythology as the first wife of Adam, who had the audacity to not want to submit to him and his God-given control over her. And so she was cast out of the Garden of Eden and became a demon and a mother of monsters and a mother of vampires and all that kind of thing. And she's been used as a character in all sorts of modern properties, from Supernatural to True Blood. Great character. Her children, the children of Lilith, were the Lilim, And that's what apparently these witches and Stardust are. So Neil Gaiman has connected those witches to the myth of the Lelim. And the movie makes it even more on the nose by calling it the witch queen Lamia. And the Lamia is, well, there was a character in Greek mythology called Lamia. She was one of Zeus's many conquests. As we know, monogamy was not one of his strong suits. And Hera, as we know, was not particularly fond of her husband's extracurricular activities. Hera was a lot less like the Hera in Disney's Hercules and a lot more like the Hera in Netflix's Blood of Zeus. So you can imagine how well she took it. She cursed Lamia, transformed her into a monster, usually depicted as a woman from the waist up and a serpent from the waist down. And, poor Lamia had to bear the brunt for being the target of Zeus's indiscretion. And to make things better for her, he gave her a pair of removable eyes. I mean, it's a weird way to try and make things better. I guess after all those millennia, you'd run out of romantic gestures and things would start getting weird. But removable eyes. Who does that remind you of? Zeus also gave Lamia the ability to transform, to shapeshift, which is also a trait that the other mother possesses. So we've just got all of these connections lining up. Even though the Witch Queen isn't a true Lamia, even though she doesn't have removable eyes, she doesn't have the ability to shapeshift in quite the same way. She's still been set up as a connection to that myth. Another supernatural female, a she-demon who preys on children and consumes them. And nothing describes the other mother better than the idea of this Lamia spirit, or a Lilith a spirit, a Lelim. She has the same appetites, and even though she is a little less physical, she operates on a more spiritual realm. She is a shapeshifter, so who's to say she hasn't taken multiple forms over the years? The fact that they start off benevolent, lay the trap, it's also consistent with your idea of vampires. I guess it does connect in with a lot of these sorts of intelligent predators. But anyway, I do feel like these connections are not much of a leap. They really are lining up quite consistently. So that's who the other mother is. She is a Lamia or a Lelim. She is one of the daughters of Lilith, just like the witches in Stardust. And understanding her that way really makes a lot of sense to me. I hope that's thought-provoking to you as well. If you like it, if you don't like it, do let me know in the comments below. And that leads me to my thoughts for a Coraline sequel, because come on, Leica Studios, Coraline is one of your finest. It's done so well on its recent re-release, and I'm pretty sure that there's discussion of a sequel and what would that look like. Given that we don't have any source material to work from, we're free to play with whatever we want. And I think the movie has left us with a lot of unfinished storylines that we need to resolve. One of the first is that I would like to see more of a friendship between Coraline and Wybie. She was a bit of a cow to him at the start. I guess maybe she's passing on some of the energy she gets from her mother. But I think they had a really good chemistry when they got going, and you could have a little buddy detective vibe going on between the two of them, which of course, supplemented by the cat, they would make a great trio. I think that this time the other mother would not go after Coraline. She's tried that. It was quite the setback. This time the other mother is going to go after the other child within reach who she's just got a taste for, Wybie. And she'll try to get to Wybie through Coraline's mum. Coraline's mum is so dark and toxic. She has so many negative thoughts. And I think that would make her a very easy prey for the other mother to get her hooks into Mrs. Jones' consciousness. And couldn't you just imagine the other mother finding a way to manifest in the real world by slipping through the mind of Mrs. Jones? I mean, she really does have a bit of a dark temperament. I could see it happening. And after having these two competing mothers, the real mother, the other mother, you'd need to have a different setup for the sequel. So what about combining the two? There's no more competition. We've just got Coraline's mum, who is slowly merging with the other mother. And the whole movie becomes a race against time for Coraline not only to stop Wybie from sewing buttons into his eyes, but to stop her mother from permanently merging with the other mother. I could absolutely imagine Coraline's mum extending hospitality to Wybie. And Wybie hasn't had a mum. He's had his grandma, but it sounds as though he's been quite neglected himself. So he would absolutely reach out if Coraline's mum said, "Hey, you're always welcome here." But then if the other mother starts slipping through her, well, she can get her hands around Wybie. It's quite a scary setup, really. I think one of the other lines that would need to be completed, excuse me, is that the father would need to redeem his character. He needs to get a bit of a spine. I think he would find his courage. And I think Coraline's mum, in learning to resist the other mother, would need to find her heart. She needs to find her soul. She needs to repent from being mean. She's basically a bit mean. And I think I know Mrs. Jones, Coraline's mum, has a long way to go. So she has a whole character arc that she needs to embark on as well. And I think that would make for a fantastic story. You could have, rather than sending Coraline back through the tunnel in the door, she's been there, she's done that, that's not going to happen again, it's not going to deliver the same thrills. You could have flashbacks that show how each of the three ghost children got sucked in by the other mother. How were they deceived? How were they lured? What did the other mother appeal to in their lives? What were they missing? You could imagine maybe that the first ghost child was the child of the man who built the Pink Palace. And that flashback could perhaps let us know how the other mother was built into the Pink Palace in the first place. Is she trapped in there? Is she built into its walls? We don't really know. All we know is that she is in the Pink Palace. And we could find that a bit more about that from a flashback. And that would also mean talking to Wybie's grandmother. She only got introduced at the very end, and I think we need to see more of her. Let's hope that we get to see a Coraline sequel, maybe with some of my ideas. Let me know down below if you have any more ideas of your own and if you like the ones I've just put out. If you like my video, I would really appreciate your like and subscribe. I certainly appreciate it as a new channel getting started out. And I will look forward to talking to you soon. Good night.